Good morning, Bible believers. It is Saturday, June 20th. Happy birthday to the love of my life, my husband. You don't have to do any household chores today. We'll take care of it for you. And so on June 20th is Matthew 20. And now you notice, well, we're getting up there in the numbers. We're getting a little bit closer to Jerusalem and, the Lenten/Easter season in the gospel lessons. But in chapter 20, we're not there yet. So let's look at this chapter 20 in Matthew. The parable that we love to love. The laborers in the vineyard. Okay, so chapter 13, I think it's chapter 16 and chapter 20 have parables. The man goes out to hire workers for his vineyard early in the morning. And he hires some early in the morning. We don't know what time that is, but whatever. He hires some at 9, some at 12, some at 3, some at 5. Close to the end of the day, like an hour before it's quitting time. And at the end of the day, he pays them all the same wage. And I would just love the parable to just be like that, right? Because I'd be cool with that. However, the parable doesn't end there. It's sort of like the parable of the prodigal son. If there was just the prodigal son and the father, it would be great. But there's this older brother, right? So the older brother, a.k.a. the laborers who were hired early, they make a stink about the people who were hired at 5 or 3 or even noon being paid the same wage. And the guy says, well, didn't you agree on a fair wage? Am I not paying you a fair wage? I can do what I want with my money. So, another opportunity for Jesus to say, the last will be first and the first will be last. Do you see the grace? Yeah. It's great if you start early and you're one of those early morning laborers. You got to labor in the vineyard. God bless you. I mean, that's good. But we only look down. There's nothing less available for people that come at 5 p.m., right? And so that changes the way we look at the people around us, the people in ministry with us, the people who have potential to be in ministry with us. The laborers in the vineyard, great parable. It's hard to live. It's not a human inclination. That landowner is the landowner of the kingdom of heaven. He hires those laborers and pays them all the equal wage. And we are like the early ones causing a stink because we don't think it's fair. And so we have it again in this chapter after that wonderful, beautiful parable, Jesus foretelling his death and resurrection to the disciples for the third time in Matthew's gospel. And so he sets his sights on Jerusalem at this point. He's not there yet. So this little vignette happens, 2 of them, but one of them I think is more significance than the other. And I was kind of caught up with what's going on with the disciples. So the mother of James and John comes to Jesus and says, will you put one of my sons on your right hand, one of my sons on your left hand in your kingdom? And Jesus was like, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I'm about to drink? He says later in the garden, Father, take this cup from me. Ooh. And they said to him, we are able. So they were zealous about doing this. And he said to them, you will indeed drink my cup. Well, it's a foreshadowing what's to come. But sit at my right and my left, it's not for me to grant, it's for my Father to decide. So, oh, whoops. Yeah, sorry, Jesus. Then the other disciples, the 10 remaining disciples, get upset that this had all taken place. Like Jesus is cutting deals with 2 of the disciples to be on the right and the left. And Jesus calms them down. He says, the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. Who's the great one with tyrants? It will not be so among you. So it's again this attachment to status and place in society. I sort of like the Charles Dickens, if you will, of calling into question things like an aristocracy or where your place is in society and who matters and who doesn't. Can relate to the way we treat each other in our country today. To think about our position. You don't want to say anything or do anything that would lose your influence over other people. Of course, Jesus is the opposite of that. He's saying, whoever wishes to be first among you must first be the slave. Yeah. Just as the Son of Man came, not to serve, not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. That's also the one he put on the pillow. I remember hearing that as a child and just thinking, I know that there's a lot of theology behind that and some of it's a little flawed, but there's it's a beautiful message of how if God wants to teach us something about what it's all about and who God is and what Jesus came for and how we're supposed to live and relate to one another, we're supposed to give ourselves over to one another. He gave his life as a ransom for many. After that, he heals 2 blind men, and then we go to Sunday, chapter 21, where we get closer to the crucifixion. Have a good Saturday. Celebrate my husband's birthday. God bless you.